You go now, or I break this on your head." The heavy wooden pestle cut through the air. Adana screamed and dropped low. She pressed the cold clay pot against her chest like armor. "Mama, please," she begged, her back scraping the mud wall. "Not the Forbidden River. The elders say anyone who goes there never returns." The older woman's eyes burned with hate. She raised the pestle higher and pointed one thick finger toward the forest path. "The village well is bone dry. I need water. You will fill that pot at the river, or you die right here in this yard." Adana stared at the weapon in her stepmother's hand, then at the dark trees beyond the gate. Both paths led to death, but one of them might give her a chance. Welcome back to Afri Tales by Z. Tell me where you're watching from. United States, England, Germany, or somewhere in Africa like South Africa. Drop it in the comments. And please, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. It helps the algorithm bring you more stories like this. The sun was angry that morning. It burned the village of Umudioka like fire from the sky. The ground cracked open in long, deep lines. Dust rose from every footstep. Even the goats had stopped bleeding because their throats were too dry. Adana knelt by the community well, pulling the rope hand over hand. Her arms shook. The bucket felt heavier than usual. When it finally came up, there was barely enough water to cover the bottom. She poured it into her clay pot and sighed. This was the fourth time she had tried. The well was dying. Behind her, children cried. Women argued over who would draw water next. The line stretched all the way to the chief's compound. Everyone was desperate. Adana carried her pot carefully on her head. She walked slowly so she wouldn't spill a single drop. The sun pressed down on her like a heavy hand. Sweat ran into her eyes, but she didn't wipe it. She couldn't risk losing balance. When she reached home, the compound was quiet. Too quiet. Her stepmother, Mama G, was lying under the mango tree on a wide wooden bench. A fan made from dried palm leaves rested on her large belly. She wasn't moving. Her eyes were closed. Adana tiptoed past her toward the kitchen hut. "Stop!" Adana froze. Mama G opened one eye. "Bring that pot here." Adana's heart sank. She turned and walked over, keeping her head low. She lifted the pot down and held it out with both hands. Mama G dipped a wooden cup into the water. She brought it to her lips, took one sip, and spat it out violently. The water splashed across Adana's feet. "Mud!" Mama G shouted. She threw the cup at Adana's chest. It bounced off and clattered to the ground. "You want to poison me with this dirty nonsense?" Adana flinched but said nothing. "I work hard to feed you," Mama G continued, her voice rising. "I clothe you. I let you sleep under my roof, and this is how you repay me? With swamp water?" Adana wanted to explain. She wanted to say the well was almost empty, that everyone in the village was drinking the same water. But she had learned long ago that explaining only made things worse. "I'm sorry, Mama," she whispered. Mama G wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Sorry doesn't quench thirst," she pointed toward the road. "Go back. Bring me clean water. Real water, not this mud." Adana picked up the pot and turned to leave. But as she walked toward the gate, she heard Mama G mutter something under her breath. Useless girl, just like her dead mother. Adana's hands tightened around the pot. She didn't cry. She had no tears left. Adana walked to the market instead of the well. She knew there was no clean water left at the community well. If she went back there, she would only return with the same muddy water. Mama G would beat her for sure. Maybe someone at the market had water to sell. Maybe she could trade her head wrap for a cupful. It was her only head wrap, but it was better than going home empty-handed. The market was almost empty. Most of the traders had left early because of the heat. Only a few women sat under torn canopies, fanning themselves with pieces of cardboard. Their goods looked tired. Wrinkled vegetables, warm fish. Everything was dying slowly. Adana moved between the stalls, asking quietly, "Please, do you have water to sell?" No one answered. Some shook their heads. Others just stared at her with tired eyes. She was about to give up when she saw him. An old man sat on the ground near the medicine seller's table. His clothes were torn and dirty. His lips were cracked and bleeding. He leaned against a wooden post, breathing in short, painful gasps. No one stopped to help him. People stepped over his legs like he was part of the ground. Adana watched as his head dropped forward. His eyes rolled back. He was fainting. She ran to him and knelt down. "Baba, are you all right?" He didn't respond. Adana looked around. No one was paying attention. She reached into the fold of her wrapper and pulled out a small flask. It was the water she had saved for herself. Just half a cup. She had been carrying it since morning, sipping carefully to make it last. She held it to the old man's lips. "Drink, Baba, please." The old man's eyes fluttered open. He drank slowly, his throat moving with effort. When the flask was empty, he looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. His hand reached out and touched hers. His palm was rough and warm. "Child," he said, his voice soft like wind through dry grass. "Water given in kindness never runs dry." Before Adana could respond, someone shouted from across the market, "Girl, move away from that beggar! He has sickness!" Adana stood quickly. The old man was still smiling at her. She didn't understand what he meant about water not running dry, but something about his words made her chest feel warm. She nodded at him and hurried away. As she walked back toward the village road, she touched the empty flask at her side. She had given away her only water. Now she had nothing to drink and nothing to bring home. Mamaji would be furious, but somehow Adana didn't regret it. The old man's smile had been worth it. She didn't know that smile would save her life. By the time Adana reached home, the sun was setting. The sky had turned orange and purple, but the heat hadn't left. It clung to everything like wet cloth. Adana's throat burned. Her lips were dry and cracked. She had not drunk water since morning. She pushed open the compound gate slowly, hoping Mama G would be asleep. She wasn't. Mama G stood in the middle of the yard with her hands on her wide hips. Her daughter, Nkiru, sat on a stool beside her, eating a roasted plantain. Nkiru was 2 years younger than Adana, but twice as spoiled. She smiled when she saw Adana's empty hands. "Where is my water?" Mama G's voice was low and dangerous. Adana swallowed. "Mama, the well is empty. I tried everywhere." "Lies!" Mama G stepped forward. "You were gone for hours. Where did you go? Were you playing with those dirty village children?" "No, Mama, I went to the market to find—" "The market?" Mama G's eyes widened. "You went to waste time while I sit here dying of thirst?" Adana opened her mouth to explain, but Mama G slapped her across the face. The force knocked Adana sideways. She fell to her knees, her cheeks stinging. Nkiru laughed and took another bite of plantain. Mama G grabbed Adana by the arm and dragged her to her feet. "You are the most useless child I have ever seen. Your father married your mother and left me with this burden when she died. I should have thrown you out years ago." Adana said nothing. She kept her eyes on the ground. Just then, voices drifted over the compound wall. Neighbors were talking loudly on the other side. "The chief called a meeting tomorrow," one woman said. "About the drought?" another asked. "Yes. He says the land is cursed. The gods are angry. My husband says there is only one place left with water." There was a long pause. Then the first woman whispered, "The Forbidden River." The second woman gasped. "No one goes there. The river spirit guards it. They say the water turns to blood if you try to take it. People who go there never come back. Better to die of thirst than face that spirit." The voices faded as the women walked away. Mama G stood very still. Her eyes narrowed. Adana could see her mind working, turning over an idea like a stone in her hand. Then Mama G smiled. It was not a kind smile. She let go of Adana's arm and stepped back. "Go inside and sleep," she said softly. "Tomorrow will be a very important day." Adana didn't understand the change in her stepmother's tone, but she didn't ask questions. She hurried into the small hut she shared with the chickens and pulled a thin mat over herself. Outside, she heard Mama G talking to Nkiru in a low, excited voice. "Soon, my daughter, all the food in this house will be just for you." The next morning, the village chief stood under the great Iroko tree and addressed the people. His voice was strong, but his face looked tired. He was an old man with a gray beard and wise eyes. Everyone respected him. "People of Umudioka," he began, "the drought has lasted too long. Our wells are dry. Our crops are dead. If the rains do not come soon, we will have to leave this land." The crowd murmured. Leaving the village meant abandoning their ancestral homes. It was a fate worse than hunger. One man shouted from the back, "What about the Forbidden River? There is water there!" The chief raised his hand for silence. "The Forbidden River is forbidden for a reason. My grandfather told me the story. Long ago, a greedy chief tried to take water from that river to sell to other villages. The river spirit appeared and pulled him under. His body was never found." A woman near the front spoke up. "But chief, if we ask respectfully, maybe the spirit will allow us—" "No," the chief's voice was firm. "The spirit does not forgive greed or disrespect. It tests the heart. Only the pure can approach that river and live. The rest are swallowed. I will not send my people to their deaths." He looked around at the frightened faces. "We will wait for the rains, we will pray, but no one goes to the Forbidden River. That is my command." The crowd slowly dispersed. People walked away, whispering to each other, their faces full of worry. Mama G stood at the edge of the gathering. She had heard everything, and she was smiling. When she returned home, Nkiru was waiting. "Mama, what did the chief say?" Mama G sat down heavily on her bench. "He said the Forbidden River is death." Nkiru frowned. "Then how will we get water?" Mama G's smile widened. She leaned close to her daughter and whispered, "We won't, but Adana will." Nkiru's eyes lit up. "You're going to send her there?" "Of course." Mama G folded her arms across her chest. "If she comes back, we have water. If she doesn't, we have one less mouth to feed. Either way, we win." Nkiru clapped her hands. "Mama, you are so clever." Mama G nodded slowly. But this wasn't just about water anymore. This was about getting rid of Adana forever. The girl was a reminder of her husband's first wife, a reminder of everything Mama G hated. Tomorrow she would set the trap, and by tomorrow night, Adana would be gone. Mama G woke up the next morning with a plan. She walked to the back of the compound where 3 large clay pots stood against the wall. These pots held the last of their stored water. Adana had filled them weeks ago from the well before it went completely dry. Mama G looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then she tipped the first pot over with her foot. Water gushed out onto the dry ground. It spread in a dark puddle, then disappeared into the cracks. Gone. She tipped over the second pot. More water poured out. The ground drank it greedily. Nkiru appeared at the kitchen door. "Mama, what are you doing?" "Creating an emergency," Mama G said. She kicked the third pot. It fell and broke into pieces. The last of their water soaked into the earth. Nkiru's eyes widened. "But now we have nothing to drink." "Exactly." Mama G dusted off her hands. "Now we have a reason to send that girl to the river." Inside the hut, Adana was sweeping the floor. She heard a crash outside and ran to see what happened. When she saw the broken pots and the wet ground, her heart dropped. "Mama, the water!" Mama G turned to her with fake surprise. "Oh no, I was washing my feet and accidentally knocked them over. How clumsy of me." Adana stared at the puddles. That water was supposed to last them 3 more days. Now it was gone. All of it. "What will we drink?" Adana asked quietly. Mama G sat down on her bench and fanned herself. "Well, someone will have to fetch more. I'll go to the next village," Adana said quickly. "It's 10 miles, but I can make it by nightfall." "Too far?" Mama G interrupted. "You'll die of thirst before you get there." She paused and looked at Adana with cold eyes. "The Forbidden River is much closer." Adana's blood went cold. "Mama, no, the chief said—" "I don't care what the chief said," Mama G snapped. "I am thirsty now. My daughter is thirsty. You live under my roof. You eat my food. You will fetch water from wherever I tell you to fetch it." Adana shook her head. "Please, Mama. People die there. The river spirit—" "The river spirit is a story to scare children," Mama G said. She stood up and walked closer. "But if you're too afraid, then just say so. Say you'd rather let me and Enkiru die of thirst than face a little water." "That's not fair," Adana whispered. "Life isn't fair." Mama G's voice was like iron. "Now go get the pot and start walking. The river is only 2 miles into the forest. You'll be back before dark." Adana looked at Enkiru, hoping for help, but Enkiru just turned away and went back into the kitchen. Adana felt trapped. If she refused, Mama G would beat her and throw her out anyway. If she went to the river, at least she had a chance. Maybe the stories weren't true. Maybe the river spirit didn't exist. But deep down, Adana knew better. She picked up an empty pot and held it against her chest. Her hands were shaking. Mama G watched her with satisfaction. "Good girl, now go." But Adana didn't move toward the gate. Instead, she turned and ran toward the front of the compound. She had to reach the chief. He would protect her. He would stop this madness. Adana's feet kicked up dust as she ran. The compound gate was just ahead. If she could get through it, she could reach the chief's house. She could tell him what Mama G was planning. He would intervene. He had to. She was 3 steps from the gate when a hand grabbed her head wrap from behind. Adana's head snapped back. She screamed as Mama G yanked her backward with brutal force. The cloth tightened around her throat. She couldn't breathe. "You think you can run from me?" Mama G dragged her across the compound like a bag of yams. Adana's feet scraped the ground. She clawed at the head wrap, trying to loosen it. Mama G threw her against the wall of the hut. Adana's back hit hard. Pain shot through her spine. The pot fell from her hands and rolled across the ground. "Please," Adana gasped, tears streaming down her face. I'll go to the river. Just don't hurt me." But Mama G wasn't listening. She walked to the gate and pulled it shut. Then she took a thick rope from the ground and tied it around the gate handles, knotting it tight. "There," Mama G said, breathing hard. "Now you can't run to your precious chief." Adana slumped against the wall, sobbing. She was trapped. The compound walls were too high to climb. The gate was locked. There was no way out except through Mama G. Mama G walked back and stood over her. "Listen to me carefully, girl. You have 2 choices. You take that pot and go to the Forbidden River, or you stay here and face me." Adana looked up through her tears. "What do you mean?" Mama G's eyes were black with hatred. "I mean, if you refuse to go, I will beat you myself. Right here, right now, and I won't stop until you can't move." Enkiru appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, watching silently. She didn't look happy anymore. She looked scared. But she said nothing. Adana's mind raced. She thought about screaming for help. But the neighbors had learned long ago not to interfere in Mama G's household. They would hear her cries and close their doors. She thought about fighting back, but Mama G was twice her size and 3 times as strong. She thought about the river, the dark forest, the spirit that swallowed people whole. Both paths led to death, but at least the river gave her a chance to run. "I'll go," Adana whispered. Mama G smiled. "Smart girl." She picked up the clay pot and shoved it into Adana's arms. Then she untied the gate and pushed it open. "The path to the river starts at the edge of the village. Follow it into the forest. You'll know when you're close." Adana stood on shaking legs. She held the pot tight and walked toward the gate. As she passed through, Mama G called after her. "If you come back without water, don't bother coming back at all." The gate slammed shut behind her. Adana stood outside the compound alone. The village was quiet. Most people were inside, hiding from the afternoon heat. No one saw her. No one would know where she had gone until it was too late. She looked down at the empty pot in her hands. It felt heavier than ever. Then she heard the gate creak open behind her. Mama G stepped out holding something long and thick. It was the wooden pestle she used for pounding yam, the one made from Iroko wood, hard as stone. Adana's stomach twisted. "You're still here?" Mama G's voice was low and dangerous. "I'm going, Mama. I'm going right now." "Not fast enough." Mama G walked toward her, the pestle resting on her shoulder like a weapon. Adana backed away. "Mama, please!" Mama G swung the pestle through the air. It whistled as it passed just inches from Adana's head. Adana screamed and stumbled backward, clutching the pot against her chest like a shield. "You go now," Mama G said, raising the pestle again, "or I break this on your head." Adana's back hit the compound wall. She was cornered. Mama G stood between her and the village. The only open path was the one leading to the forest, to the Forbidden River. "Mama, please!" Adana's voice cracked. "Not the Forbidden River. The elders say the water turns to blood. No one comes back." Mama G didn't care. Her eyes burned with something worse than anger. It was hate, pure and cold. She pointed the pestle toward the dark forest path. "The village well is dry. I am thirsty. You will go fill that pot at the river, or you die right here in this compound." Adana looked at the heavy wood in her stepmother's hand. Then she looked at the dark trees beyond the village edge. One path meant certain death. The other path might give her a chance. She made her choice. Adana turned and ran toward the forest. Behind her, Mama G lowered the pestle and smiled. She watched until the girl disappeared into the trees. Then she turned and walked back into the compound, humming softly. Nkiru met her at the gate. "What if she comes back?" Mama G closed the gate and locked it. "She won't. But what if the river spirit lets her live?" Mama G sat down on her bench and stretched out her legs. "Then I'll be waiting. Either way, that girl's days in this house are over." She closed her eyes and smiled. Finally, she would have peace. Adana ran until her lungs burned. The forest path was narrow and dark. Thick branches hung overhead, blocking out the sun. The air smelled like wet earth and rotting leaves. Every sound made her jump: the snap of a twig, the rustle of bushes, the cry of a bird she couldn't see. She wanted to turn back, but there was nothing behind her except Mama G and that heavy wooden pestle. After what felt like hours, the trees began to thin. Light broke through the canopy, and then she heard it. Water! The sound of flowing water. Adana pushed through the last line of bushes and froze. The Forbidden River stretched before her, wide and beautiful. The water was so clear she could see smooth stones at the bottom. It sparkled in the sunlight like liquid glass. Nothing about it looked dangerous. Nothing about it looked cursed. Maybe the stories were wrong. Adana walked slowly to the water's edge. Her hands shook as she knelt down and dipped the clay pot into the river. Cool water rushed in, filling it quickly. She pulled it out and stared at it. Clean water, perfect water. She had done it. She had come to the Forbidden River and survived. But just as she started to stand, the air around her changed. The temperature dropped. The birds stopped singing. Even the sound of the water seemed to fade. Adana's heart pounded. She wasn't alone. A figure appeared on the opposite bank. At first it looked like mist rising from the water. Then it took shape. An old man in torn, dirty clothes. The same old man from the market. The beggar. Adana's mouth fell open. "Baba?" The old man smiled. But this time his smile was different. It was bright, powerful. His eyes glowed like moonlight on water. "You came," he said. His voice echoed as if 1,000 voices spoke at once. Adana realized the truth. "You're the river spirit." "I am." He stepped onto the water and walked across it like solid ground. When he reached her side, he knelt down and looked into her pot. "You came for water." Adana nodded, too afraid to speak. "Why did you come?" he asked. "You knew the danger. You knew the stories." "My stepmother sent me," Adana whispered. "She said I had to come or she would kill me." The spirit tilted his head. "And yet, yesterday, you gave your last water to a dying stranger. You had nothing, but you gave anyway." Adana's eyes widened. "That was you." "Yes." The spirit reached into the pot. When he pulled his hand out, it was filled with gold coins. He dropped them into the water. They sank to the bottom and multiplied. Soon the entire pot was filled halfway with gold, and the rest with clear, pure water. "Water given in kindness never runs dry," the spirit said. "You passed the test. This river does not swallow the pure-hearted. It blesses them." Tears filled Adana's eyes. "Thank you, Baba. Thank you." The spirit stood. "Go home. Your stepmother will see what you carry, and she will come here herself." "What will happen to her?" Adana asked. The spirit's smile faded. "The river sees the heart. She will receive what her heart deserves." Then he vanished like smoke in the wind. Adana lifted the pot carefully. It was heavy with gold and water. She started the long walk home, her heart pounding with hope and fear. When she reached the compound, the gate was still locked. She knocked. Mama G opened it, ready to yell, but when she saw the pot, the words died in her throat. Gold coins glinted in the sunlight. "Where did you get that?" Mama G's voice shook. "The river spirit," Adana said quietly. "He blessed me." Mama G snatched the pot from her hands. She poured the water out onto the ground, counting the coins with greedy fingers. Her eyes grew wide. "This is a fortune! A fortune!" Nkiru ran outside. "Mama, is that real gold?" "Yes!" Mama G's hands trembled. She looked at Adana with wild eyes. "How much more is there? How much more did the spirit give you?" "This is all he gave me," Adana said. "Liar!" Mama G dropped the pot and grabbed her own, larger pot from inside the house. "If the spirit blessed you, he'll bless me even more. I'm going to that river right now." "Mama, no!" But Mama G was already running. She didn't take water. She didn't take food. She took only the pot and her greed. Adana watched her disappear into the forest. Hours passed. The sun began to set. Mama G did not return. Nkiru sat on the bench, crying. "Where is she?" Adana didn't answer. She already knew. The next morning, the village chief sent men to search the forest. They found Mama G's pot floating in the forbidden river, empty. But Mama G was gone. The water had swallowed her whole. The chief declared it a tragedy, but the neighbors whispered the truth. The river spirit had seen her wicked heart. Adana used the gold to buy food for the village. She dug a new well with help from the men, and when the rains finally came, the people called it a miracle. Adana never forgot the old beggar's words. Water given in kindness never runs dry. She had given with an open heart, and the river had given back 100 times more. Mama G had taken with greed, and the river had taken everything. Friend, thank you for staying with me to the very end. This story reminds us that kindness is never wasted, even when it costs us everything. If you believe that what you give with a pure heart will always return to you, then please tap subscribe and join our community here at Afri Tales by Z. You won't want to miss the stories we share next. I've picked out another story just for you, and you should see it on the screen now. I hope to see you there.